The Appalachian Trail, winding through wilderness, 2,155 miles across 14 states. There is a romance to the trail, rolling footpaths, bright days, gentle nights under mountain skies. But the trail also brings storms, battering unprotected mountaintops. It is tough and demanding, mountain after mountain, mile after mile. Add the numbing burden of a 40-pound pack shouldered each step of the way, it wears a hiker down. 2,000 began the Appalachian Trail each year. Of those who start, only 1 in 10 will make it all the way. The trail is unforgiving. Weakness means failure. Those who endure marshal all their strengths, physical, mental, and spiritual. And those who triumph are never the same again. Whatever possessed this unlikely woman, a middle-aged mother of 2 grown sons, to test herself to her very limits? Jean Deeds knew that if she could take on the trail and meet its demands, she could handle whatever else life threw her way.
A lot of people expressed some real strong reservations about my sanity when they heard I was going out to live for 6 months in the wilderness. When I read about the trail and talked to people who had hiked the trail, I realized very quickly that it was going to be the hardest thing I would have ever done in my life.
And yet, in the course of those many miles, up and down endless mountains, Jean Deeds changed in ways she could never have imagined. At the time Jean Deeds decided to hike the Appalachian Trail, she knew one thing for sure. She was looking for something more. She had been a single parent for years. Her 2 sons were grown and out on their own. Her job as public relations director of the world's largest children's museum wasn't enough anymore. Jean knew she was about to cross an important bridge in her life, but she didn't know where it would take her. So she decided to, as she says, break out entirely.
When I decided to do this, it was like I just was stepping from the life I had known into an entirely new life. I was just putting on a new skin and a new set of clothes and doing something so different from anything I've ever done before.
That something was to hoist a 40-pound backpack and set off to hike all 2,155 miles of the Appalachian Trail by herself. She had read about another woman's experiences on the trail, and that lit a fire inside her.
I guess at that time in my life I was just looking for some changes. I wanted to have a transition into something new and different in my life. I felt like I was able to see my life kind of rolling out ahead of me, and every day seemed as if it might be a lot like the other days before and after it.
So Jean quit her job, rented her house, and began preparing for what's called a through hike of the trail.
I just started working out several times a week and really building the muscles I would need. And I tried to simulate that physical experience. I was going to need muscles and stamina, and I tried to build both before I went out to the trail. So I knew that I was going to have to call on all of my 51 years of determination and grit and trying to accomplish goals, and I felt like the maturity that I had was going to compensate for some of the skill that I didn't have and the fitness that I didn't have.
When I think back, it amazes me that I made the decision to put myself completely outside my comfort level, and I think it was because I needed to, in my lifetime, learn some lessons about how to deal with discomfort and pain.
Jean set out on what became a journey of transformation, a journey that began with lessons she learned with her first few steps.
I saw a lot of people who actually dropped off the trail because of blisters. I knew that there was a real risk in literally having your journey end if you didn't take good care of your body. I've heard that it takes 5 million steps to get from Georgia to Maine, and your feet are going to carry you. If those feet are miserable and every single step is agony, sometimes that's what will kind of send you over the edge and you think, I can't do this anymore.
Jean had learned her first lesson from the trail, literally from the ground up. Only when you take care of the physical aspects of the journey are you open to mental, emotional, and spiritual growth. The trail meanders from Georgia to Maine. It led her through rugged beauty and dreary sameness. The first few weeks of Jean's trek were rough going. Jean hiked from 10 to 20 miles almost every day, no matter what the weather. Springtime in the southern mountains can be cold and harsh, and Jean's body had to adjust to the shock of hiking so many miles, day after day, carrying on her back all she would need.
I would get up in the morning and eat a quick breakfast, and then I would just put everything on my back again, and that sometimes meant I was carrying 35 pounds, sometimes I was carrying 45 pounds, depending upon how many days of food that I had on my back at the time. I would hike for several hours, often without stopping, and then I would eventually stop for lunch. I took a break at some point during the day and got off my feet. I massaged my feet. I did everything I could to make sure that my feet and my legs were going to carry me to Maine. When I got into a campsite or wherever I was going to stay that night, I would go and fill up my water bag, and then I would filter it so that I wouldn't get sick. And then I would just set up my tent if I were tenting. Find a spot in one of these little shelters, just talk to other hikers if there were other hikers around, and get ready for bed.
Then she'd try to get some sleep, and the next day, Jean would get up and do it all over again.
Once or twice a week, I would go off the trail into a town so that I could resupply. And that usually involved finding a grocery store where I could get more groceries for anywhere from 4 to 7 days. And it also involved going to a laundromat and taking those few little pitiful clothes that I had been wearing for the last week nonstop. About once every 2 weeks, I wrote a long letter home to all my friends and family. I had arranged ahead of time before I left home that I was going to hike into about 12 towns along the way that had post offices. And I would go into a post office and I would say, do you have any mail for Jean Deeds? And then they would give me the packages that were there waiting for me. And sometimes I would have as many as 40 letters waiting for me when I came into a post office.
Jean's letters were picked up by a columnist from her hometown paper who kept readers posted on her progress.
Dear Jean, the columns have really struck a chord. You are inspiring people to follow their own dreams. No matter what happens, know that a lot of people are pulling for you.
In turn, those readers took a personal interest in Jean's hike.
Dear Jean Deeds, the 13 years since my hike has not blurred my memory. The numb feet, the rain-soaked boots, the friends I made and still have.
Every night, Jean slept either on the hard ground in her tent or on the hard floor of a shelter. Usually, she was so tired she got the rest she needed. Other nights, though, even a good night's sleep simply wasn't enough. Jean had to reach deep to find the strength she needed to continue. It was there that she found another source of comfort.
My dad had died when I was 5 years old, and so I, of course, didn't have a strong mental image of him, and therefore, through the years, I hadn't thought about him very much. But somehow, about the 6th week on the trail, I was having a really rough time emotionally, and I just started talking to him, and it just felt as if he was just kind of there offering encouragement for me. I often had the feeling that if I was really hot and tired and I was having a really rough climb, that I just needed a cool breeze to cool me off, and then it would come along and I would say, thanks, Dad. I just decided that he kind of put the idea in my mind, planted the seed to do this, so that it would be a time that he and I could have together. And I thought I provided the strong legs and he provided the support spiritually for me, and we just kind of went up the trail together.
Dear Mrs. Deeds, reading class has gotten more funner since you started the Appalachian Mountain. At first, I wasn't interested, but all of a sudden, Mrs. Fish said something that was in one of your letters, and then I knew, this is going to be fun.
Sometimes Jean was joined along the way by a four-legged presence, horses that shared the meadows the trail passed through. She tried to be friendly, but sometimes the horses were downright pushy. And then there was the time that Jean hardly slept a wink all night, afraid of nuzzling and rustling sounds right outside her tent. She had heard there were bears in the area. When she worked up her courage to poke her head outside the tent the next morning, she discovered the predators were cows. She says it's the first time she learned that cows don't moo at night.
Most people who are out on the trail are given or give themselves a trail name that has something to do with who they are or some characteristic about them. My name was Indiana Jean.
Trail names were a quick way to get to know fellow hikers. And along the trail, chance meetings could quickly develop into powerful friendships.
There were people that I met and became friends with that I would never ever connect with in any other part of my life. And these were people that I didn't necessarily have much of anything in common with, except we were all going through a very rigorous experience. We got to the point where we really didn't have any sort of mask. You just accepted other people just as they were.
You really appreciate what it takes to hike from Georgia to Maine, you know, in a 6-month period. It takes a lot. I think it's 90% mental and probably 10 physical. I mean, you have to really psych yourself up to do it and to stick with it.
And because bathing was a trail luxury, some of those fellow hikers could be rather fragrant. Other times, they could be soaked to the skin.
At first, the weather was a real factor because I wasn't used to being outside for 24 hours a day. And if it was raining, I got wet. And there were times when I was wet for days at a time.
Dear Indiana Jean, I don't know if you are a religious person, but I'm certain this experience has been quite a spiritual one for you. I know someone is watching over you and protecting you. All of us here at home are praying for you.
Those letters from family and friends and even strangers became a really important part of the motivation that kept me on the trail. I got to the point where I thought, wow, these people are all expecting me to get to Maine, and they're all just doing everything they can at home through their prayers and their good wishes and their thoughts and everything, and I just can't let them down.
Dear Jean, if anyone can do it, it will be you. Keep your chin up. God will take care of you.
I sometimes got the feeling as I was going further along the trail that I wasn't just hiking this for me anymore. I was hiking it for all the people back home who were just going every step of the way with me.
Jean learned early in her trip about something called trail magic. Just when a hiker needs a little boost, trail magic takes over.
It just feels to me like so many times along the trail there was somebody there who would just come along, say, is there anything I can do for you? That just, often would be the boost that you needed to move on. Every single day, every day on the trail was painful for me, and there was a point in almost every day out there when I just wanted to quit and go home because it was just too hard. And I remember some days thinking, oh, why does every day have to be hard? Can't there be one day when the trail is just really benign and there isn't a steep down right at the end of the day, and it doesn't feel like my campsite is a mile further away than I wish it were? And almost every day when none of those things happened, and yes, it was that hard, I found that I did eventually get where I was going. I did find a resting place that night, and then by morning, it was okay again, and I was ready to go.
Through the hot summer days, Jean kept on hiking north. She had been walking for 5 months, more than 1,800 miles, and had crossed the line into the 14th and final state of her journey. Her goal, Mount Katahdin, was within reach.
I think often I felt like the trail would just throw something at me, whether it was cold, rain, or heat and bugs, and then I would survive that. I would make it through it, and so then the trail would say, aha, well, you thought that was bad? Wait till you see what I've got next for you. And then the next day they would the trail would throw in a new twist.
This time, when she least expected it, her foot slipped.
And it just twisted, and I heard a little pop, and that was it. And my ankle had broken.
It seemed as if Jean Deed's dream to complete the Appalachian Trail had ended.
I was just devastated, and I just couldn't believe that my through hike was over. Within just a couple months after I got home, it just felt to me like I had to go back and finish my journey on the trail.
As soon as she could, she began working to rebuild the strength in her legs. Jean approached her rehabilitation process the same way she faced her hiking, one step at a time, one day at a time.
When I broke my leg, I had been on the trail for over 5 months. I'd gone 1,850 miles. I had gotten to the border of the last state, and I guess I could have said, well, that's good enough. I just felt like I had set that goal for myself, and I really needed to finish that. One of my sons said to me, Mom, how many people have a second chance to have a once-in-a-lifetime adventure?
By late summer, almost exactly a year after her setback, Jean was ready to try it again. She loaded up her tent and her backpack and set off.
I just can feel that trail starting to envelop me. I know that the trail takes care of people when they're out there. And I'm kind of ready to go back and see if I've learned the lessons that I think I learned when I was out there last year. Before I broke my leg, I had been through some of the hardest part on the trail. I think the first year I dealt with my fears. I was able to do what I had to do in the midst of being afraid of it. When I went back to the trail, I thought, I'm not afraid anymore.
The final leg of the Appalachian Trail is the rocky climb up Mount Katahdin. Jean had been thinking about that day for more than a year.
It's a fitting end to the Appalachian Trail.
It's kind of awe-inspiring. It is also a mountain that is a 5-mile hike up, and you gain elevation of 4,600 feet, and so it's a very rigorous climb.
Oh man, does it start right in? Instead of it being a glorious, easy day, the trail threw in a little bit of a twist, as always, and added some rain, and added some mist, and some clouds, and some cold. I knew that I was going to make it to the top, and it just felt like, almost like the pathway kind of smoothed out. We're almost there.
And I know that there were probably times I was practically running, and I didn't even realize it. It was just like a magnet just drawing me up to the top. It was in some ways the best and the worst. The rain that I just hated and suffered with through the trail, but then the beauty of the mountain when the clouds cleared and I was able to see, and I just thought, this is the kind of day it should be at the top of the mountain.
Every spring, the town of Damascus, Virginia holds Trail Days, a weekend celebration for Appalachian Trail hikers, a reunion for those who've already made it. Jean returned to Trail Days a year later to hook up with fellow thru hikers she had met during her months on the trail. Friends for a fleeting moment, and now, friends for life.
Okay, in the river! In the river!
I think there's a very strong bond that develops among thru hikers, and I think out here, as the weeks and months go along and you keep seeing the same people over and over again, or maybe meet somebody new and you never met them before but you know they've done all the same things you have. You just have this sense that, you know, this person understands what I've been through and they've been through the same thing.
If you come out here and do it as a through hiker for 6 months, it turns out not just to be a hike, it's an experience, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical, and it's a journey. A hike you can go out and do for 2 or 3 days or 4, and that's a hike, but the AT is very, very tough. It's the hardest thing I think that I have ever done.
I learned to live with a lot of fear, a lot of discomfort, a lot of pain, a lot of things that seemed agonizing at the time I was living through them, and I found that those things all passed. I was in the tent more
Since
often
completing
than
the
I was
trail,
in the
Jean has
office.
compiled her letters into a book.
Yeah, but I
She's
know
also
that
spoken to a number of groups and led other hiking trips. It's given her a chance to pass on some of what the trail taught her, what she calls
All right, well,
life
we'll talk about this
lessons.
personal question.
I felt the trail takes care of people. If you needed something, it was there for you on the trail. And I really believe that's true in life, too. I think if you really need something in life, whether it's a person or for something to happen or for growth to happen, I think that that is provided for you in life.
People need to find ways to test themselves, to have their own adventure, and to connect spiritually with the world, which I feel like I did on the trail. I think a lot of people out on the trail came back with a much more spiritual connection to the trail. I think that was something that was unanticipated for a lot of us. There's a security there when you're on the Appalachian Trail that is not present in the rest of your life in one way. There's the feeling that the trail is there for you. It's going to take care of you. It will guide you. All you have to do is follow those white blazes and you're going to get where you want to be. I think we do have white blazes in our life. I think that there are benchmarks, there are milestones, there are pathways that lead us where we need to go in life. It didn't seem at the time that I was out there that the destination was the important thing. It was the experience I was having along the way. I think now more than ever before in my life, I'll be able to recognize the blazes in my life. I'll be able to spot the pathways when they are laid out before me. I think I'll be able to find my way.
Jean Deeds found her way, a rocky path that became a victory trail.
The victory is simply making the decision to take on a life-changing experience and then seeing that through to the end and being able to take away from that some things that are going to serve me for the rest of my life.
For a copy of tonight's program, call 1-800-667-0801, operator 20. The cost is just $15.95 plus shipping and handling per episode, or $64.95 plus shipping and handling for the series set.